Now we're going to talk about exception handling in Python, which is a critical skill for writing robust and error-tolerant code. Exception handling allows us to gracefully handle errors and prevent our programs from crashing. Now before we dive into coding, let's understand why exception handling is important. In Python, when an error occurs during program execution, it raises an exception. Without proper exception handling, these exceptions can cause our program to terminate abruptly. Exception handling provides a way to anticipate and handle these errors, allowing our programs to continue executing gracefully even in the presence of errors. Let's start by learning how to handle exceptions using the try except block. In this code segment, we use the try except block to handle exceptions. Inside the try block, we write the code that might raise an exception. In this case, we attempt to divide 10 by 0, which raises a 0 division error. In the except block, we define the code to handle the exception. Here, we simply just print out an error message. By using exception handling, our program continues to execute even though an error occurs. We can also handle specific exceptions and execute different code based on the type of exception. In this code snippet, we handle the 0 division error specifically and provide a custom error message. We use the except keyword followed by the exception type. We can also use the as keyword to assign the exception object to a variable, or e in this case. This allows us to access additional information about the exception, such as the error message. The else clause allows us to execute code if no exceptions occur. In this code snippet, we use the else clause to print a success message if no exceptions occur. If a 0 division error occurs, the except block is executed instead. The else clause is useful when we want to separate the exception handling logic from the code that should execute if no exceptions occur. And the finally clause allows us to execute code regardless of whether an exception occurred or not. Let's run this first. In this code snippet, we use the finally clause to print a completion message. The code inside the finally block is executed regardless of whether an exception occurred or not. It ensures that certain actions, such as closing files or releasing resources, are performed even if an exception is raised. And that concludes our tutorial on exception handling in Python. We covered the basics of handling errors gracefully using try except blocks, handling specific exceptions, and using else and finally clauses. With this knowledge, you can write robust and error-tolerant code that gracefully handles exceptions.